So good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Anita Fowler, and I'm here with my great friend, Stefanie. It has been a few years, but you know what? When you're friends, and it doesn't matter how long it's been. Stefanie has been journeying this leadership pathway. She has been in high demand, and she has been laying the pathway for a long time. While I was in the military trying to find my way, stumbling through leadership, until I realized that I wasn't the only one stumbling. Oh my God, help me, Jesus. But I want to just introduce you to her and let her share a little about herself. I know that she has worked in various companies, but go right ahead, Stefanie. Do your thing.
All right. Well, first of all, Arnita, thank you for the opportunity to just spend some time talking about leadership. But more importantly, I thank God that my experience, my prayer is that my experiences and my tips might inspire somebody, give them a different way to think about, and all for the glory of God. So, first and foremost, the most important thing about me is I'm a child of God. And everything I do, is one of my favorite scriptures said, is to seek him first, knowing that all things are going to work. So yes, I did start my career out right out of college. I was catapulted into management. And then I've spent a lot of time in technology, and then in the consulting world. I currently own my own business, and where we transport people with disabilities. But anyway, I have spent more than 20 years trying to be a deliberate and intentional and better leader. But really, that's it. I've had battle scars. I've been, when I was early on, I thought I knew everything, which does not help you. And then later on, really through the grace of God, I've just learned some valuable lessons. And being a leader is an incredible responsibility, but it can be so rewarding, but it can also be exhausting. And everyone is not meant to be a leader, you know. So anyway, I'm just thankful to be here. Want to get the conversation started. So take it away. Or people can ask me whatever they want to. Yeah.
Amen. That's right. If you're listening out there, I want you to definitely ask some questions, and we will definitely take the time to post them and respond to them as best we can. Listen, you said exactly what I've been feeling. Is that leadership can become so exhausting, and I don't care what industry you're in, right? And so this is the thing: leadership didn't just fall upon me, right? In regards to my thought and my pathway. I mean, God had a purpose, right? And I have been like saying all these years, specifically those I spent in the military for 32 years, saying, okay, God, why am I always the advocate? Why am I always the advocate? Why I have to always use my voice? Why I have to be on the front line, you know? But God built us with a purpose in mind, right?
Yes.
And so I just want to say that leadership has, when I look back over it and I do an assessment, I realize that leadership has been exhausting. Not tiring, but exhausting, right? And I say that because navigating leadership has been my challenge. Um, and I say that also because I used to tell my chief all the time when we would go to war training for medical, I said, and we was only 2 weeks there, right, for training. And when I would call him, I said, listen, you better hurry and get us out of here. It won't be nobody left to go to war, you know? Because leadership is so challenging. Like, we knew our job. That was not the problem. It was leadership. And every day it was just something new. And so I thought that we would talk about leadership given the current environment that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I realized that not only do we need to be intentional about leadership, as you said, but I think we need to rethink it to the point of being intentional, as well as being deliberate, and at the same time caring for those who we lead, right?
Yes.
So I threw that out there because I wanted to talk about how does one pivot with all that's going on, right? We see ourselves in a crisis when it comes to leadership, when it comes to organization. Like, we're at a point we've never been before. Now, I'm not saying we never had a crisis,
Right.
But what I am saying is right now, this is a different type of thing where it was like so unexpected, impacted so many. And we are all have now gone from physical leadership to digital leadership. Now, tell me if that's not a challenge. So I want you to just kind of chime in and say, how do we stay focused on the vision while
Okay.
leading?
So I have like a slightly different perspective on the pivot.
Okay.
And so my slightly different perspective is I think that in order to lead for long-term results, keep people focused on the vision, I think we're missing some fundamental stuff. So I don't know if it's so much a pivot, but a reset. And by this, I mean the fundamental things. So let's just talk about what I call a solid foundation for leadership, right?
Okay.
And so just like when you build a house, right? If you build a house and the foundation is not solid, if the storm comes, it is very likely that the cracks and weaknesses that were already there show up. Just like the Bible says, if you plant something in bad soil,
yes,
the soil is not good and you're not rooted deep, what happens when the challenges? It just blows you away.
Yes.
So in terms of solid leadership, these are just the things that I have experienced and work for me. Number one is, and there are three of them and I'll go into them. Number one is to have what I call the power connection. Okay, and I'll explain that in a second. The second thing I believe is what I call the basics. So being emotionally mature,
yes,
being thoughtful, being smart, being goal-oriented, and being what I call a one-on-one guru. So it's just these basic skill sets that I think, and I'll go into that in a second. And then finally, and most importantly for me, if you have a plan B, or if you are financially fit, you are more courageous and bold to do the things that you know are right. Because think about this. How many times have we been afraid to do the right thing because we're afraid of losing a job?
yes.
Right? So because of that, when you have a plan B or you're financially fit, I think you can be a better leader.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just talk about these three things. The power connection. So in this day and age when we live by our smart devices, can you imagine what would happen when our power goes out on our smart devices? Can't do anything. Can't do anything, right?
Right.
So for me, and this is just me personally because I'm a believer and I'm a Christian, if I am not constantly connected to God, relying on his power and his strength, just like we were talking about, it's easy to get exhausted. But if I know all I have to do is connect, plug back into him,
yes,
then it helps, because he tells us, right? Put it on me. I'm going to carry all your burdens. So number one for me is if I don't have that power connection, staying connected to God, have the right juice, I cannot be an effective leader. Okay, so that's what I mean by power connection. Now, even for those people who don't believe, all of us need some kind of reliable, trustworthy source to plug into when we get exhausted. Okay, yes. So that's what I mean. I think a solid foundation of leadership so that you can get long-term results and stay focused, first and foremost, in my experience, requires a solid power connection. The second thing I'll talk about is this emotional maturity. And I think, Arnita, this is really where we miss the boat. And so I'll call it, I don't think enough of us take our big girl, big boy pills. And when we are given the privilege and the blessing and the honor of leading other people,
yes,
if we are not emotionally mature, and what do I mean by that? Emotionally mature leaders respect and value everyone regardless of where they are, right?
Mm. And
so emotionally mature leaders also know themselves and they know other people. So what most people call that is understanding your personality type, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a whole set of kind of basic things. Once again, being emotionally mature, knowing yourself, knowing other people, being thoughtful, being smart. And then this goes to the next point, goes to this goal-oriented part. So this goes to the vision and the mission. So imagine this. Imagine, Arnita, if I told you and a bunch of our old friends, right? I said, hey, let's get the gang together and let's go on vacation. So what would you tell me? What would you ask me?
Right now?
Yeah, where are we going?
Yeah, exactly. Where are we going and where are we going and how are we getting there? What's the plan? Like, what's the plan?
Exactly. So a lot of leaders don't tell their people the vision, but more importantly, what the vision is, the mission is, and the objectives, and their role in helping get there. So if we're going on vacation, one person might be responsible for snacks. Somebody might be responsible for navigating. Somebody might be responsible for having a good tune so we can listen and jam, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
I think one of the things about being goal oriented, and what I will tell you though, is I believe the military does an incredible job of this.
yes.
That the mission is clear, your role in the mission is clear, but a lot of other companies don't do that. I would stay with businesses, churches, like, here is what our vision is. Here's the mission, here's objectives, but more importantly, how do you fit in to help us do that, right?
Yes.
I would tell you that most of the people that I talk to, employees, cannot tell you how their role specifically helps get the vision. So if you all don't know where you're going, for example, Arnita, if you're going on vacation, we are going to someplace warm if I get to pick. Now, if we're going with my friends, it might be they want to go snowing. But if we're not clear about where we want to go to, right? And more importantly, what your role is in getting us there, then I don't know how you do it. So once again, let me go back. We need that power connection, and we need those basics: emotional maturity, know yourself, know your people, respect and value them, be thoughtful, be smart, be goal oriented. And then I think the most important tool for leaders in this day and age, actually in any day and age, is what I call being a one-on-one guru. And here's where I think a lot of people, and so I'm going to say just me, because I messed up at the beginning, right? But change does not happen a group at a time. I just can't take a group of people and go, okay, here's the change, and I'm just going to plot a group of people to the next thing. What I have to do, and this is why one-on-ones are so important, I need to know, because change happens one person at a time, not a group at a time, not a culture at a time, but one person at a time. So as a leader, it is important for me to have effective one-on-one conversations to understand that my employees or my team know, hey, here's what's going on with the company. Where are you? Where should you be? Where's the gap? And then how do I support you to get to that? Right? So all one-on-ones should fundamentally have that basic agenda. Now, before you get into one-on-one, I'm going to go back and say it assumes that you respect and value your team. They know what the mission and vision and objectives are and their role in it. And then every one-on-one meeting should be the following: what's going on with the company? What are you doing? Where should you be? What's the gap? And then how do I, as a leader, support you to get to that? Now, in that, there are different, I guess, three kind of major things that happens at companies, right? In terms of where are you, where do you want to be, and what's the gap? And that is just basic, ongoing, day-to-day activities to just get the stuff going on.
Right.
The second thing is, how do we manage them through projects? Or thirdly, like planned projects, right? We're going to open up a new branch. We're going to do this. We're going to have to deal with the regulation. So I call those kind of projects. And the third is crises. Like, right? But keep in mind what I just said. All of the things, if you are having regularly scheduled one-on-one meetings with your team, you're respecting and value them. They know what's going on. They know their role. So regardless of whether it's ongoing, a change, or anything else, you can help navigate them through. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Right.
You talked about having a foundation, number one.
And these are the foundational things, yes.
Yeah, and so you say, and being intentional about it. So building into your plan to be able to have one-on-one, realize and understanding how change occurs. And I think that's kind of where we have a breakdown, is how does change occur, right? Because if that's not your lane and your only responsibility and your task at hand before you is to accomplish the bottom line, but you don't have a plan to get there, and then you kind of have a crisis every day. You kind of find yourself in a reactionary mode.
Yeah, so, but if you use that basic structure, right? So if you're always, when you're meeting with people, you go, okay, here's what's going on. Here's what you need to be doing. Here's where you are. What's the gap? And how can I support you? You're always, like you said, you built it into your DNA. Oh, and then check this out. This is not brand new.
Exactly. I was getting ready.
I knew this. So let's talk about Moses. For those of us who are believers, Moses' father-in-law figured this out a long time ago. Remember when Moses, so they're going and Moses is trying to deal with the multitudes and he was exhausted. And his father-in-law told him, he said, break it up into smaller groups of people and assign what I'll call supervisors to help you with smaller groups of people, right? So you can do your one-on-ones. Okay. And then I'll handle the big stuff. So that's why the CEO of a company or a president is not responsible for the performance appraisals of all employees.
Right.
You have to get it down into small, manageable groups. Now, there's lots of discussion about what the size should be, right? Whether it's 3 people, 10 people, 12 people. But it depends on the business, what you're doing. Also, the frequency of these one-on-one meetings, which I think is the most important tool for a leader. The frequency can be daily 5 minutes. It could be weekly 15 minutes. But at a minimum, every leader should be connecting one-on-one at least once a month with their people. And going back to what I said about a solid foundation, it depends on the personality type, right? Yes. Some of us need more people time. Some of us like, just give it to me, whatever. And so knowing that is really important to, once again, having the solid foundation. And as you said, to getting long-term results. So once again, have a power connection, have the basics, emotional maturity, thoughtfulness, smart, goal-oriented one-on-one. And then finally, the third component is that financial fitness. And that plan B. If you have those things, you are more, it gives you more courage, and you become fearless because you're not worried about doing the right thing. You're not worried about losing your job and not being able to pay bills. We all been there.
Yeah. Right? And yeah, so I like to call that being bold. And so,
but it's hard to be bold when you're worried about paying the bill.
It is. No, I'm agreeing with you. And I always thought of it as, and realized that, say, for example, when you have a dream in front of you and you want to pursue that dream, but then you realize that where you're making your money at doesn't allow you to do that. So now you got to make some choices, right? Do I keep wanting to make money to live, or do I want to follow my dream and trust God, right?
Right. And see, and that goes back to what I said about, for me, the power connection. If Stefanie's will is not in line with God, I don't care what I try to do, it's not going to work. But if Stefanie's will is aligned with God's, he will move mountains. And it just works. So when you stay connected to God, oh my goodness.
I cannot count the times that I've had to lean on my faith,
Yes.
My strength was in my faith. Now, I couldn't walk into my supervisors and leadership rooms and talk about, Christ, Jesus, and what he told me and what my purpose is, right? But I did do it. And I did it consistently, but I did it in a language that after I learned, that they could understand. But then they also knew me because we had those one-on-ones and we had them constantly, you know what I mean? But so my immediate leader, he began to know me that way. And so I witnessed to the fact that you definitely have to have the one-on-one, and you can't have it in a group effect because you're talking about a situation and everybody's kind of like, does that apply to me? Does that apply to me? Does that apply to me? Because once again, they walk out because they're not clear. And I think that's why when it comes to organizational change, we challenge ourselves, even in military, when it comes to change. No one tells us how to implement it. They tell us what to implement. And the biggest thing about leadership is not who you are, where you're from, but it's what you do.
Yeah. But Arnita, check this out though. Imagine this. Imagine for every change that occurs. So imagine I'm having one-on-one. So let's say I've got my team of 10.
Okay.
And imagine I am having regularly scheduled one-on-one meetings, right? And for every change that occurs, I make sure the following things happen. I make sure, for example, let's say, Anita, I'm your leader. I would make sure that you, Arnita, could explain to me, hey, do you understand what the change is? Would you mind explaining to me in your own words what the change is and why we're doing it and how it's connected to our mission? So imagine if every change started with that we could make sure that all of my 10 people could articulate what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it impacts the vision. So that's number one. So even before you address people's concerns or anything, imagine if every employee had to be able to explain what the change is, why the change is occurring, and more importantly, how it fits into the vision. Now, once we get that clear, imagine this. Imagine if every leader addressed the concerns and questions. So the second thing I do is I address. So Anita, you might go, hey, Stefanie, we tried this before. This was kind of cuckoo crazy. So imagine if I address all of your concerns and your issues, right? Because Arnita, all of us resist.
Yeah.
Think about it.
That's the biggest.
I might resist because my little ego's hurt. I didn't feel involved. I might resist because I'm afraid of what the future holds. I might resist because I just personally don't like the leader because the leader hasn't done what? Respected and valued me. So imagine this once again. If every person understood what was going on, why it was going on. Secondly, I make sure I address in a real, authentic way their issues and concerns. And then together we say, okay, you're afraid. So maybe, hey, let me let you go try it out with somebody. So for each one of the person's issues and concerns and resistance, I address it. We collectively address it. And then I make sure my team knows how it's going to be reinforced and how it's going to be measured. So, hey, is this new change I'm asking you to do? Is it going to become a part of your performance appraisal? Is it going to become a part of the dashboard, the company overall stuff? So just imagine that for every change, every crisis, the leaders just did those three things. What is it and why is it occurring? Address their issues and concerns and have a path forward, and make sure they know how it's going to be measured and monitored. Just imagine that. Imagine that.
And see, that's the thing. Leadership actually takes an investment into not only what their task is at hand, but into the people that they're working with, right? So they say, so that means we as leaders have got to learn how to facilitate change ourselves, right? So we bring about a change, we're tasked to get it, and we don't even know what that looks like. And so the biggest thing right now is for everyone to be able to have a conversation, and like Christopher said here, address the question that concern. Number one is because everybody needs to know that you value their input. That's the first thing. And they got to be a part of that change, So to come and just kind of throw stuff out there and say, here's where we have to go. And nobody's identifying the gaps. Nobody's identifying the why. Nobody's answering the why. And so if you could be a part of the as is conversation as to how you want to change to get to the to be part, and then everybody can have that conversation. I think that's exactly where I'm talk about when I say if we have to do a leadership assessment. How are the leaders able to understand what their role is, right? What their role is, and so you explaining leadership as well as change management, I think can be enriching to people right now.
So Arnita, I'll just go ahead. So with another analogy, because I think pictures are a good word. So you're so right in terms of the leaders getting themselves together. So I'll use this analogy. All of us most of us have been on a plane. And when you get on a plane, before they take off, what do they say? So the flight attendant gets up and he or she says, hey, in the unlikely event that the cabin pressure changes, whose mask are you supposed to put on first?
Yours.
Yours. So as a leader, I need to make sure I understand what the change is. My concerns have been addressed, and I know how it's going to be measured before I can strap on the mask of my employees. That is the best analogy of what you just said, right? Because I think fundamentally, everyone wants to be respected and valued and supported and heard. That is the reason for so many challenges I've found, right? Because, and so let me just say from my experience, it requires an incredible amount of maturity to want to really make sure that your people are best. So think about good parents, right? It is really sometimes difficult if you're not emotionally mature and leaning on God, I think.
Yeah.
To go, okay, God has given me this person, and my job is to love them where they are. It is to love them where they are and knowing that God works all things together.
Yes.
This person may not speak the way I want them to or think the way I want them to. That's why that power connection I talked about, I got certain scriptures I run through in my head, especially when I have to lead someone who has a different personality type from me. So what do I mean by that? I mean that I am the big picture, get it done kind of person.
Okay.
So when I have to lead people who need more details and more one-on-one time, I have to be deliberate and intentional about doing that, right?
Okay.
And so part of, once again, you got to strap on your own mask, right? Know yourself, know what's going on before you can help other people. And I think, Arnita, we just forget that because it's challenging. And anyone who said leadership was a soft skill has never done it. Because I think it is dealing with different personality types. But once again, so here's the hope. If you are trusting in God, it works.
Well, see,
it works.
See, for you and I, we have that value system. We have a foundation, right? That's built on belief and trust in God.
Yeah.
But how do we communicate that to someone who doesn't walk that same pathway or talk that same language? So for me, when it comes to just letting people just lead with humility, lead with compassion. And this is what I'm saying about leadership. Very rarely do we talk about leadership styles when it comes to impacting the bottom line, you know? And so this is why I thought now would be a great time to have this conversation about leadership and how to make change happen, because we're all leading and we're all dealing with change, right?
Right.
So,
but see, my little twist though is I don't believe in this leadership style stuff. The reason I don't is because my leadership style has to change with every employee that I'm dealing with.
Yeah, yes.
Based upon that employee's needs.
Yeah.
Just like good parents don't parent each child the same, because they know what? Every child is different.
Okay.
Right? So parents are not going, "Ooh, I got a parenting style." Their parenting style is to love that child where that child is, so that child can become all that they should be. So leadership style to me is knowing every employee and adjusting to that employee so that I can get the best out of them. And you're absolutely right. The foundation, all of it should be humility, the fruits of the spirit: love, joy, peace, patience.
Wait. So now I absolutely agree with you that you can't just have a leadership style and let that be the only thing that you depend on, because I can tell you from the military, I'm in
adaptive leadership. Adaptive. Somebody's just writing adaptive leadership. Absolutely.
But thank you. Yeah. And so I have adaptive leadership. When I go to deployments, I'm not going to lead the same way I do when I'm home leading during peacetime. I know that, right? But not everybody understands that, because one, I don't think that if we as leaders, we have to invest in ourselves, like reimagine leadership, because pretty much what happens is there's a handoff of leadership, there's a promotion into leadership, but we haven't spend enough time on doing leadership assessment, better understanding what that looks like, especially when it comes to leading other people, especially coming to know ourselves, when we talk about emotional intelligence, But honestly, Stefanie, it wasn't until I started studying leadership, 15 years ago, that I realized, oh, there's a name for that. Oh, there's a name for that. Oh, there's a name for that. Because all I kept hearing was, there's that leader, that's their management style, and there was never that opportunity for conversation to cause change and to address change. And so I talk about leadership styles in the sense of just simply saying, when it comes to transformational leadership, it's like leading from the heart, right? As opposed to transactional, right? But at the same time, I'm not going to go out into the war game and deployment and lead the same way, because time is of essence. And we are talking about saving life and limbs, right? Yeah. So, and that's kind of where you have to be able to have adaptive leadership. But again, that requires us to reimagine what leadership looks like right now. We're leading a whole new generation of leaders. There's a whole new generation of leaders coming on board, right? So what advice?
So that's funny you said that, because That's funny you said that because in your little notes to me. So I'm gonna push back a little bit.
That's
Okay.
okay.
No. This is a good pushback. This is a good godly pushback. Okay. So people always say this to me. They go, "Oh, Generation X, Y, Z, whatever the alphabet soup is." And so I'm going to say, so this is what they say. So I look at your notes. They say millennials want people to be supportive. They want to have their best interests at heart. They seek opportunities to better themselves professionally and financially, blah, 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 blah. And personally, I think that doesn't make a difference what generation you're in. I want that. So that's what I mean by I don't think people have fundamentally changed since the beginning of time, since Moses and his father-in-law told him to do that. All of us want this. We want somebody to support us. We want to do the best we can be. I don't know of any differentiation. So that's why for me, it's not so much some category you put people in, and this is the hard part. It's one-on-one. I think it's more about your personality type, how God wired you. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some things certain generations expect and blah, 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 blah. But I think it fundamentally comes down to the person that God created, and really being deliberate and intentional about that, Arnita, takes time. It's easier to just come up with some fluffy foo-foo words about what leadership should be. It takes energy and time to address people one-on-one. I'm telling you.
That's my point.
Yes.
That time investment did not occur over there. You talk about, military do some great things. Military do some great things. We have a big history. But at the same token, there's a prioritizing, I believe, that goes on with the investment of leadership goes. We change the same way. Like, let me just say this. A military base reflects the military community around it. All right. So what's happening outside happens on the inside.
Okay.
So when you talk about a mission and a task at hand, you're still dealing with people who have a job to do at work. But when they leave that base, they got other things on their mind. So they still have to be able to invest in the leadership to be able to have a foundation, just like you're talking about. But Stefanie, at the pace at which things happen, that may not be the first thing that's taken care of. So even in the military, now I spent time in the military, so I'm talking based on my military experience, right? And I could tell you, if it wasn't for the fact that I was bold enough and I had a confidence, I didn't have a whole lot of money. I did have a constant paycheck. So for me, that was financially stable for the moment. But I could go in and have a conversation because I'm now becoming a leader, right? And what I discovered is just what you said. The people under me are people. And they need to be able to have a conversation about what their concern is and how they impact this whole process of change and mission. And so it does take some stepping back sometime and looking at yourself and knowing who you are maturely. Because it says the best leaders are the best learners, right? That's what some of the greatest leaders are some of the greatest learners. So that's all I'm saying is that you have to be able to realize you don't know everything.
Right. But I would say the greatest leaders are great learners, but just being a good learner is not enough.
No, it's not. But I'm just saying, you have to know everything, right?
Yeah, you can't know everything, but it starts with people. So just think about this. From my own experience, think about leaders that we follow. It's not the ones that are necessarily so smart and all that. No. The ones that we tend to follow from job to job are what? People who care about us. Which is why I am convinced God, like when everybody's asking Jesus and God what's going on, he keeps going back to the same thing. Love me and love other people. He eliminates all that stuff. He says everything is based upon that. Can you imagine? I'm not talking about that lovey-dovey, but I'm talking about loving somebody where you care about what's happening.
Genuinely care about what's going on. Imagine this.
Yeah.
Imagine you're talking to your generation, whatever you're talking to today, Z or millennium. And here the reality is that there is a difference in regards to what's going on. And you're talking to them about the job and they got their mindset on something else. And this is one of the conversations I've had is, so we got to be able to relate to people as opposed from people, person to person, one-on-one, like you said, because again, I think it's critical when we talk about leading people. People know when you care and when you're just doing something. Let me just kind of say that. because we always used to use this word in the military. That is so cellophane. Like I can see right through that. You know what I mean? People would give you that what you want to hear, a conversation, or what they think you want to hear. And if you didn't have a foundation, a belief and conviction, clear on what God wants you to do, and know how to communicate, you can't do that. And so that's the biggest thing I find right now is being able to communicate what it is that our followers or our constituents need to hear. Now, I'm not talking about just organizational leadership. I'm talking about church leadership. I'm talking about community leadership. Leadership stretches across all industries, right? And that is
it starts with your relationships with your friends. Just imagine in any relationship, whether it's friend or loved one, the one that's for you, imagine if we really took the time that everything we did, we thought about it from that person's perspective. Just imagine that.
Yeah.
Instead of it being about us. So if we really go, okay, they're acting crazy. Okay, why are they acting crazy? What, another analogy is, did I give them the proper food? Does this relationship require sun or shade? Do they need more water than they need food? And that's why it's wilting or acting a little cuckoo. So I agree. I think it's just really, I agree with you, Arnita. It's regardless of personal relationships, business relationships, church relationships, all people want to be loved and valued and respected and supported, and they want their voices heard. And that's not easy to do because of different personality types. However God wired you, that's not easy. Well, it's easy if you're relying on Jesus. Yeah.
It is. See, and I think that's what was funny to me, my own personal conversations. I call it my own inside joke, because I'm talking to God and everybody else trying to talk to me. And I'm like, I'm just listening to God, right now, and but I wanted to say, when it comes to people caring, I so many times, I spent a lot of my time in the military. I have been a soldier of God longer than I've been a soldier in the military. Let me just say that. I went in the military with values and beliefs, okay? And thank God I did. And I think that we have to have a foundation of beliefs. We have to have a foundation of values, because people know when you don't care, right? And then that is why I brought up the millennium thing, is because now this is all just research. Let's just talk about that for a moment. But I got some millenniums on here listening right now that I've talked to, and they're commenting here, and they talk about inclusiveness, right?
Absolutely. But everybody wants to be included. And I mean, I lead millennials. My team, I have millennials. I have everywhere from 25 to 70, right? And but once again, I don't treat them. I don't go, hey, you're X, you're Y, you're baby, you're whatever, boomers, whatever. I treat them, I try to, and I hope they would attest to this. I try to treat them individually.
Okay.
Right? And so I don't look at them like this. I think these categories, right, can be dangerous. They should be a warning sign, because the hard work is dealing with people individually. It's not.
No, I think awareness. Being aware of who you're dealing with. So here's the thing: being unaware is dangerous. Like if you just come to work to lead because you're goal oriented, and yet you're not investing in your people, be it time or be it growth. We're talking about growing and investing in new leadership. So you have to be able to have the communication. And imagine leading a group of people and you're not communicating with them, one, the goal or how they impact the goal, what's their value to it. And that is why I say we have to have a conversation of leaders among leaders, right? Leaders among leaders, because we don't know everything. And so we have to have, like you and I are dialoguing right here. It causes us to think about it. I mean, my supervisors did not know everything. I would say certain things, they would do certain things. And I said, why would you do that? I said, individual so-and-so over here is dealing with a home problem. That's because I knew what their home problem was. And so I would say, listen, let me know how I can help. And in the military, I was more concerned. It wasn't like report to duty, and if you don't, you get in trouble. It was more about Let me know where you are. So I don't want to report you at duty only to find out that you're on the side of the road somewhere hurt. You know, I
Right.
need to be able to understand, and being able to being able to make them feel like it's okay to come to me. And I think that I'm not boasting about myself, but I learned these things by how I looked at leadership, and as I was led and said, "Oh, I'm not doing that." You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It was more
You're
about what I
absolutely
was
right.
not doing.
Because somebody is making comments down there, Pastor Joy, about being noticed and appreciated. I couldn't agree more. And that's what I'm saying. And once again, the Bible gives us this instruction. There is a reason why God said, love other people like you love yourself.
Yes.
So I try to treat people like I would want to be treated myself.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I want people to be gracious. I want people to be merciful when I mess up, right? I want people to appreciate me in a genuine and authentic way, right? And what did you say? Not the cellophane thing? Like,
Yeah.
cellophane thing?
Be genuine leadership.
Right. But, and the other thing you kept mentioning too in several of your comments was, how do you do it if they're not Christians? Well, once again, the Bible's real clear about this. They will know you by the fruit you bear, not by what you say. Yeah. So if I treat people kind, I can exhibit the fruits of the Spirit without quoting the scripture.
Yeah.
I can be humble. I can do all of those things without quoting the scripture. They will know us by the fruit that we bear. And then what you were saying about communication, you're so right. I believe, once again, there's a reason why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Effective communicators listen twice as much as they speak.
So when you talk about, I was getting ready to ask you a question.
I'm so sorry, because I get excited about this stuff, because I think that's the biggest crisis we have in this country is good leaders. Most of us, off the top of our head, can't just talk about like great leaders. Most of us can rattle off ones we don't like, right? We can rattle off a list of the ones we don't like, but very few of us, once again, can say, "Oh, that's like really just a great leader." You know, I think we have a crisis. Well, I just think we need, so let me not say crisis. We need more people who care about people.
No. That sums you right up, because listen. So we talk about succession leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about succession planning.
Mm-hmm.
And it has just become more words, right? More words. Like we talk about feedback and mentoring. Whereas I don't believe the way that we were being mentored is what was intended to be, because it got overcome by competing crises, right? One after the other. So yeah, we're facing a crisis today, but like you said, change management happens. Whenever there's a crisis, we find the cracks. Remember you said that?
We do.
And so I have a conversation with some of my minister friends, and the biggest conversation is, or the outcome, should I say, is, do they care? You know, do they really care? And I think it's necessary to have this conversation across industries, because every time I have a conversation, whether it's about work, whether it's about ministry, it's all about leadership, right? And so here's what I want to say. The fruits that we bear. I looked at that as being predictable leadership, right? People need to understand and know what they can expect. So oftentimes the research focused on what leaders expected of their followers or constituents. But now the turn, as I continue to research, is where the followers, constituents are looking at what's expected, or researchers are looking at what their followers and constituents are expecting from leaders. And that is why I'm talking about leadership more so also. It's because the tables are kind of like, have been one way. It has been one way lane talking about leadership, what leadership expect from followers. But I think it's time that leaders understand what leaders expect from one another. You know, accountability is one of the biggest challenges. The constant questions that I get is about leadership accountability. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard for people to hold other leaders accountable? Why is it so hard?
It's just maturity. It's like I said, you got to take your big girl, big boy pills. So
that's the first time I've heard that, but yes.
Right, you got to take your big girl, big boy pills. Why? Because let's say, for example, in my company, right? And we drive people and we go through all these protocols. And there's lots of discussion now about our companies going to be held liable and whatever.
Yeah.
So I am the owner and leader of the company.
Okay.
And I'm following what, CDC and World Health and NIH all say. But if something happens to my employee,
yeah,
I don't care. They could sue me. I am going to take responsibility. I am going to do everything I can to make sure my employee is okay. Another good example is, so regardless of the pandemic, in workers' comp,
who you are. That's because
but that's what I'm saying about taking big girl, big boy pills.
Yeah.
Because, for example, like workers' compensation, which to me is just a crazy thing, that if somebody gets hurt, they're not going to get their full salary. So one of the things I did, one of my drivers got hurt, I made sure they were paid their full salary. Right? So this accountability goes back to that solid foundation of what you're connected to. I don't really care. My job is to care for my people that God has put. Now, don't get me wrong. Have I made mistakes? Of course. So I just rely on grace and mercy every day. But Arnita, that's one of the challenges is we are not like living this stuff, like living whatever we are not treating people the way we want to be treated. Because
and that's evident all over. Listen, Stephanie, that is evident. So don't get me started. That is evident from the White House to the church house to the schoolhouse to people house. I throw my hand up every day. No, seriously, it has been like the hardest thing to stand here and watch how people are being treated. I mean, people on the masses.
Right, but here's the cool thing. Once again, it's God. Because Satan wants us to be confused. I can't be worrying about all the other people. I can worry about whoever God puts in my space. I will treat them the way I think God wants me to be treated. Because you can get overwhelmed. Now, if God is calling you to make, remedy some wrongs, you should do it. But I think he wants us to keep it simple. Stephanie, I gave you, 14 employees, 16 employees. You take care of them. That's what I need you to do, right? And love them like you would love yourself, because I think more of us just need to wake up, take our big girl, big boy pills. Well, and just get over ourselves, because I've been there.
No, you're right. It boils down to loving others, like you said, as God first loved us, because treat people the way you want to be treated. Yeah. And I think when I first walked into this whole world of work life, nobody handed me a book on being a follower or being a leader. And so I've had to depend on God to order my steps and my thoughts, and even more so, and then have an honest conversation with other leaders, bringing them to be accountable or to just see clear and to understand. People know when you don't care. People know when you're not speaking the truth. People know when you're genuine or not being genuine. So I think the word for the day is that we just got to love more.
Yeah, in a genuine, authentic way. And you and I were talking about this about Nehemiah, right? The Bible gives us a great example of, Nehemiah. What's the first thing he did, right? So he fasted and prayed. So somebody made him aware that the walls were in ruin. These walls that protect their city and protect people, they're in ruin. They've been in ruin for nearly 100 years. He's aware of the problem. And what does he do? For months, not days and hours, he fasts and prays. Then what does he do? He surveys the damage to really understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Then he organizes. Now, this is knowing people. This is knowing your people. He organizes people in these family groups by their homes. So they're even more motivated to build the wall because it's going to help protect their house. And he did it in 52 days, right?
Yeah.
Because what? Just like you and I were talking about, he was humble. He was humble and he asked permission. So he got guards escorted him and he got the resources. And then he knew his people. He put them in small groups by family. Why? Because that would give them a sense of comfort. And they were allowed to work near their homes, right? So then they could see, hey, if I don't keep this wall up, I'm not going to be protected. So God gives us all over. I believe that when God really wants us to do something, he says it over and over again. And one of the things he says over and over again is love me and love other people.
Yeah.
So I know it's simple, but it's hard to
It's
do.
hard. And that's why I think the frustration comes in, is because it should not be this difficult. And I look back and reason again. I talked about leadership assessment. You talked about Nehemiah. I look at Nehemiah. I found all kind of examples of illustration. Listen, he had focus. He knew, and he relied. He knew when God was talking to him, and he knew when people were trying to. How many times did they go up and try to get him to come down? How many times, right? I mean, that's how much repeated distractions come at us on a daily basis, right?
Think about Moses. Moses is one of the best leaders. Moses got mad at the people, right? Through the rock. That's why he didn't get to the promised land. Even Moses, as great of a leader as he was, because people can get on your last nerve if they're not like you. But that's the whole point. God doesn't want us to depend on us. He wants us to depend on him. So then they're not getting on my last nerve. So it's funny, what I do, there's another lady who's a Christian. I literally have some glasses that are rose colored, and I call them my Jesus glasses. So when people are really getting like, okay, Lord, this person wants me to talk for 5 hours. I only want to spend about 5 minutes with him. I'll just put on my Jesus glasses. And then I'll start remember my favorite scriptures, like be still and know that I am God. Seek you first. All things work together, right? And I will literally put on my Jesus glasses, and it makes me smile and know that this person was created by God. God put them in my life for a reason, and my job is to bear fruit so that God will get the glory.
And that's what I mean when I talked about predictability, being able to know that if people know your heart, right? Leading, I call it leading from the heart, right?
Yeah.
If people know your heart and they can predict something, they can come to you, they can trust you, you know? So when people know that you care and people can trust you, right? That you are going to care, what your reaction is going to be to something. Communication was the key for me. You know, that's the part I miss about the military, is that day-to-day communication contact with individuals that I could have grown-up conversation with, I call it. You know,
it is important. It's really important, Arnita, that communication is one of the most important tools, but we don't do a good job of it. And I don't think we listen enough. And so I'll just talk about me. We don't listen enough. And just really, it's difficult to do, but it is the most important thing. So like you said about the military might not do some things, but they've got some good foundations.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, at least they're deliberate and intentional about having a leadership academies. I think we as a people do really good at what I'll call building boats. So we can build plants and systems and products. We don't do such a good job at getting people to row the boats the way we want them to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we build these wonderful systems and apps and processes and all that kind of stuff, but we don't do such a good job, the people side of it, getting people to row the boat the way we want. So what we end up with is people all getting in the boat. Some people want to row to the left. Some people want to row to the right. Some people want to row in a circle. And so the boat's good, but the boat's not going where we need it to go.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge we have. And so as a leader, I have to figure out, okay, who do I need? Should I put Susie on the left or Susie on the right or Susie in the front because she wants to be in the head? So I think we do a great job of building the houses, building the boats, but not such a good job as leaders of getting people to row the boats in the directions we want them to.
Well, you know, and I know this whole leadership thing goes even deeper based on what you just said. Like we're taught that people are our greatest resource, but then we don't understand that it's the right people that is our greatest resource. We think we just got to fill the bus up and just go drive, and no one knows where they're going, right?
Exactly. Some people shouldn't be on the bus. Some people shouldn't be in the city. Some people should not be in the same city. It's a great analogy. Yes, some people should not be on the, and you know what? This is a good point. Because I think a courageous leader helps people know when they shouldn't be on the boat.
And now
on the bus. And I do believe that.
And this is where I want to go. So, and this is an example. So I went to one of my bases, right? As a leading one of the second largest or the largest aeromedical unit, right?
Uh-huh.
So we have a critical responsibility. We got to get people from downrange back home and get treated.
Uh-huh.
And so training is key. We have to measure our training, know where we are in our gaps, and then fix it, right? So I had a wonderful individual in this new unit, right? That I walked in, and I'm looking at her value system, her commitment, and her skill set, which was never evident until I put her on some orders, and she spent like 30 days with me, right? I'm like, whoa, here I am trying to do something and my job, do training and my job, but I got an individual right here. But it took me sitting down, talking to to her supervisor, saying, look, he was like, no, 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 she helps me. I said, she helps you. But we need her to help this whole unit because we have a training requirement. And again, when she got into that job, she worked wonders. I mean, when I left there 3 years later, she was still in that job. We had made such significant improvement in regards to increasing the training. So you're right, having the right people on the bus and being able to guide them. But here's what people don't understand about that is that just because you when you train somebody, you got to be able to if you don't have the right person, right spot, it doesn't mean firing them. It means closing the gap of where that training is, or where that leadership gap is, or where that training gap is. And that is what I'm talking about, leadership assessment, you know?
Yeah.
It all
Have
works
to, but
together.
some people, you figure it out, you try to fill the gap. Some people are in the wrong job.
That's my point, yeah.
Yeah.
But you won't know that if you're not paying attention, right? If you're just
exactly one-on-one measuring. Absolutely.
And how do you know, and let's bring it to the question of how do you know when and I'm not saying we have to answer it now, but how do you know when leadership development has occurred? How do you know? How do you map out succession leadership? Right? Is it just? It's not just somebody you like, not just somebody you know, but how are we planning for that? And that is what I was addressing when I did the leadership, the succession plan development for the Pentagon Force Protection Agency. Right?
Well,
anyway,
so my basic thing about that is I think that you cannot achieve what you can't measure. And so when you talk about something, I believe everything that you really want to achieve, if you really think through it, you can measure it. So leadership, for example, is the leadership going to be measured by the team accomplish their goals? Is the leadership going to be measured by how many one-on-ones? Is the leadership going to be measured by whatever? So what I'm saying is, you usually get what you measure. For example, I used to run, because I've been in technology, and I used to run a customer service organization. And well, I volunteered to take over this group, right? Because I'm always volunteering to do something. And so when I came and found out what they were being measured on, they were being measured on how many clients didn't cancel. So if you're measuring on how many clients or don't cancel, how many of us have gotten those phone calls going, I call and say I don't want it. They go, oh, no, no, no. You know, I'll give you this. I'll give you this. I'll give you that. So they were getting what they measured. So I think generally speaking, what I'm saying, Arnita, is you get what you measure. And so you have to be really thoughtful about what it is you're measuring, which is good organizations have processes like in place to get all kind of voices heard to figure out what you should be measuring. So that should be a part of DNA of an organization about strategizing and measurement. And more importantly, as someone else had written on the comments, every voice needs to be heard, because if I don't want to listen to somebody's voice, my question would be, why do I have them as an employee?
Yes.
Because also hiring people is, I also think, one of the toughest things, right? But if I'm not going to hire somebody whose voice I don't want to hear, why do I hire them? And so I think in all of these kinds of things, I'm not saying you have to listen to and do everything that somebody says, but I think you got to listen to all kind of voices, because perspective is so good. I don't need people who think like me, because I know what I think, right? I need somebody who pushes back, thinks differently, you know, and go, oh, you know, I didn't think about it like that. And if you're mature enough, you don't take it personal. You go, okay, the point is for us to hit this vision, And is that perspective going to help us? That's what I need to look at. So,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. Yeah.
So
I
this
know.
is this has been wonderful. We could go on all day because I want to talk about sustainability. I want to talk about diversity because I spent 13 years
That's
in
a whole nother discussion.
and that's a whole nother discussion. You know, I had three African American presidents in 32 years. I'm like, that's a darn shame, right? And so representation matters. And so that's why I'm just so glad to be able to have you to sit and talk to me because I know you've been walking this on the outside. And sometimes I feel like I'm a lone ranger on the inside, you know, in my industry. But I begin to have more conversations. And I just wanted this to be an intentional conversation so that people can be impacted. Um, and I know you wrote a book, right?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know. I was trying to find it, but I want people to be able to know how to reach you. I know
But
you're.
that's okay because I wrote the book because when I was a public speaker, people would always go, "Oh, do you have a book?" So it was my first book. It's called Let's Go. And it's a framework I have similar to what I was talking about today about leaders are emotionally mature, thoughtful, smart, goal-oriented, and one-on-one gurus. But it's funny because somebody asked me about it and I said, I think I need to update it, and do it. But yeah, I just wrote it. It was my first book. I just wrote it just because I needed to have something to sign after I did public speaking.
Well, that's all right. Listen, I appreciate it because again, we walk it, we never get a chance to share it, and then people want to be able to ask questions, because again, I think it's going to have us. It requires us to get into the room, more leaders to get into the room and get our stay focused and get our head in the game, right? And in my word, I just like read the room. That's what I'm asking people to do, right? As leaders, to step back and realize that you're not in this by yourself, but we got to realize that love and caring will take us a long way. Love and caring.
Yes, and that is my prayer, Arnita, which is why I was excited to come and just chat with you, is because my prayer is that God will make us lead. We will be inspired by the Holy Spirit and God to lead the way He wants us to lead. That's my prayer. And that my experiences and my mistakes, somebody can learn from them. You can take it what you want, just like any advice. But my prayer is that things that I've learned, all of that will help us lead people the way God wants us to, and He'll get the glory because it really is not about us.
And that's my point. I think that when we engage in people, Stefanie, that is foremost is we have to deal with people with respect. We
Absolutely.
have to always deal with people when it comes to dignity. And even when you're having a debate about something, the decisions are not, debates are not bad when it comes to making decisions. But having to deal with and lead with fear and coercion is not what's going to take you to the long haul. Leading for power is not working, but leading for people does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So,
well, I thank you once again, Stefanie. This is not the last time we're going to get together. I think everyone who listened, I thank you for your comments and your questions. And we're going to be having some announcements coming up in regards to new tasks, leadership conferences for 2021. We're planning now. And when I finish writing my book, we'll do the book launch as well. And so I just want to thank you for contributing to the conversation and your experience. It's like, I think it requires us to constantly have these kind of conversations among leaders so that we can just kind of share and know that, my goodness, love every day is my motto. Love every day. When I'm talking to someone, I'm thinking about.
That is so true. I hope I can love as many people as long as I can. Yeah. And to get out of my own ego, because I have been there and it's just not good. It's really not. When it's about Stefanie, it just doesn't work.
Well, you have wrote a book, you have started your business, you have built software, so you've done it all. So we're going to be able to talk about those at length in the future. So I thank you once again, and stick around for a minute as we
Okay, I will. Okay.
Thank you everyone for listening. Now I hope you make some more comments and rewatch it. There's a lot of great information in here, and I'm just so grateful for what God is doing. Thank you.